Hi, it's great to have you with us as we continue to go step by step through Mark's Gospel. They laid their traps like experts. A couple of questions that were loaded and potentially lethal. How would Jesus fare? Could he come through unscathed? Or was this the end? The section of Mark's Gospel that we're looking at is Mark chapter 12 and verse 13 through to verse 27. If you don't have your own Bible or a copy of Mark's Gospel, there's a link to an online Bible in the video description where you can read the passage for yourself. Now, the spider-tailed viper is skillful at laying traps. The snake curls up, using its camouflage to stay hidden. It then wiggles its tail, which looks a bit like a spider, so that the birds can clearly see it. When a bird comes over, thinking that it will have an easy meal, the viper strikes. In the passage we're looking at today, we're introduced to the Pharisees and Herodians, and then the Sadducees. These were different groups among the leaders in Jerusalem. They come as two delegations, and their purpose is to lay traps for Jesus. They dangle the bait in the form of two questions and get ready to strike, to bring him down. The first trap is laid by the Pharisees and Herodians. It begins with a bitter flattery, maybe trying to soften Jesus up. In verse 14, Mark tells us, "They came to him and said, 'Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth.' But then comes the question, is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we?" Now, this was a clever question. Jerusalem was under Roman occupation. Caesar was an unwanted ruler, and the tax was a constant reminder of this painful position. If Jesus said pay, there would have been plenty of people in Jerusalem very upset with him. But what if he said don't pay? The Romans would have seen that as inciting the people against them. They would have been quick to come down hard on him and snuff out the threat. What would Jesus do? Mark tells us that Jesus knew their motives. He knew that they were testing him and trying to lay a trap for him. He doesn't fall for it. Instead, he is able to give an answer that offends no one, but challenges everyone. Taking a Roman coin, the currency in Jerusalem, he asked the Pharisees whose picture is on it. "It's Caesar's," they reply. Next comes the punchline. Mark tells us in verse 17. "Then Jesus said to them, 'Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's.'" Here were a people who were happy to enjoy the benefits of the Roman economy and carry around the Roman coins in their pocket. As part of that, taxes were due, so pay them, Jesus says. But as a nation, the Jews saw themselves as God's people. So Jesus tells them, "Give your lives to God." After successfully navigating the first trap, Jesus is then faced with another one. This time, it's the turn of the Sadducees to try and catch him out. Mark introduces them with some important information. The Sadducees were a group of Jewish leaders who didn't believe that there was life after death. And this was the angle they were going to take with Jesus. In the Old Testament, there was a law that said, if a man's brother dies and leaves a wife but no children, the man must marry the widow and raise up offspring for his brother. Now, normally, I don't like dropping bombs and then moving on without giving some explanation. But I'm going to have to do that here, as we don't really have time to go into the thinking behind this law. And it's also not the point of the passage. You see, the Sadducees aren't there to debate the law with Jesus. Instead, on the back of it, they had weaved a story that to them showed how ridiculous the idea of life after death was. What if there were 7 brothers, and each of them died without having children? The widow will be married to the first one, then the second, then the third, and eventually she would marry them all. Then in verse 23 comes the line that to them shows the stupidity of it all. At the resurrection, whose wife will she be, since the 7 were married to her? You can imagine their thinking as they delivered that last line. Gotcha! Surely there was only 2 answers. Try to defend the resurrection and look a fool, or agree with the Sadducees and that there is no life after death. But they hadn't really taken account of who Jesus is. Jesus sees their story for what it was, a straw man, a fake argument that proves nothing. He then digs into their doubt and uncovers their mistakes. What were they? Mistake number 1 was thinking that you remain married after you die. In verse 25, Jesus says, "When the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven." Then mistake number 2. They didn't understand or accept the power of God to do incredible things. In verses 26 and 27, Jesus tells them, "Now about the dead rising, have you not read in the book of Moses, in the account of the burning bush, how God said to him, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob'? He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. You are badly mistaken." I don't know about you. I find Jesus impressive here. If you've ever been in a debate with someone, you know how easy it is to be tied in knots. A question is fired that you aren't ready for. Words can be twisted. Here, the religious leaders don't hold back and fire their best shots. Jesus doesn't miss a beat and simply bats them back again. Which one strikes you as the one who knows what they're talking about? Which one stands out as the one with understanding? Which one would you trust? Do you think Jesus is worth listening to? That's it for this time. Join us in the next episode when we're going to look at another question that Jesus is asked. It's not a trap this time. Instead, it's a vital question that gets to the heart of what a life with Jesus should be all about. If you want to know when that comes out, do like our Facebook page or subscribe to the YouTube channel or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Hopefully, see you next time.